Welcome back, Alpha Hunters. The markets are closed for the week of June the 7th, the first closing week here in June, and the start to the last month of Q2 of 2024. So let's go ahead and go through what went on this week. I'll go through the kind of the pace and feel of the week and then kind of talk about some of the economic data that we got throughout the week. So we had a little bit of a gap up here on Monday, and then we had a pretty good pullback. And all the way until about midday, which kind of made sense because we did rip very hard right there at the end of the day on Friday of last week. It was really strong rally. So we got to midday, and then we saw the bullishness come back, ended off session lows, even kind of towards the highs, not quite getting back up there, but definitely off the lows. A little bit of a gap down, kind of sideways, a little bit of a pullback here on Tuesday, and then just a settle, steady, just kind of push higher. Basically got to the weekly highs there Tuesday afternoon. Quick pullback, but nice little end to the day. Wednesday, nice gap up here, pullback, and then just push throughout the day. It was a very strong day. We were up over 1% on the market, at least here on the SPY. It was a really strong day. Just the whole day was really strong outside of the quick 45-minute pullback. And then Thursday, a little bit of a gap up, nice little pullback, kind of trying to base here in the afternoon, looking like it was going to push higher on Friday, and sure enough, we did. Nice little gap down, quick little gap down there. Pushed higher, start the day, pull back, pushed higher into the afternoon, and then ended kind of soft. We kind of dropped off there in the afternoon, tried to bounce, and then it kind of came back down. So definitely towards kind of the session lows, but not at the session lows. So yeah, kind of a weak end on Friday, but the rest of the week was pretty strong. All right, as far as economic data that we got this week, Tuesday we got JOLTS job openings, and we did see the JOLTS job opening numbers come down quite a bit. It was at 8.05 million, and the forecast is calling for 8.34 million. So that was quite the miss there, and I think that's several months now in a row that we've seen JOLTS numbers actually decline. Wednesday, we didn't really get too much. We just got kind of the normal stuff like ISM type stuff. I'm not really a big watcher and follower of that type stuff. But Thursday, we did get initial jobless claims. Initial jobless claims did come in at 229K. The forecast is calling for 220, and the prior month was 221. So a little bit of uptick there on initial jobless claims. So yeah, we're starting to see some issues struggling there in the labor market. And then Friday, we saw a little bit more of that continue. We got unemployment there on Friday morning. It was at 4%. Forecast is calling for 3.9. Prior was 3.9. So this is, another month that it has ticked higher. This is the first time since the beginning of 2022 that it has hit 4%. It's been under 4% ever since then. So that was, we'll see what happens there, but it is definitely in an uptrend. We also got non-farm payrolls, which came in at a whopping 272K. Forecast was calling for 185K. Prior month was 165K. So a huge jump there. And definitely want to dig in more into more than just the headline numbers here. There was a lot of part-time and a lot of migrant hiring. So not all sunshines and rainbows there. So this is taking a look at the chart here for U.S. unemployment rate. And like I mentioned, going all the way back to the beginning of 2022 was the last time we were at 4% or higher type levels. And yeah, I just wanted to let you see this. So we are definitely in an uptrend. We've been in an uptrend basically since Q1, Q2 of 2023, starting to even breach higher and make our way into the 4% area. So typically the way these go, and I'll just kind of zoom out here, is once you kind of start that uptrend, it's just kind of a matter of time until it really accelerates. That's kind of typically just the way it goes. And you can see it in previous times before, back in like 2000 or 08, 07, 08. Yeah, it'll probably just be a matter of time before it really starts to shoot up. It'll probably just be like 1 month where it just kind of jumps like 0.5% or something like that, or maybe even 0.4%. And then it'll probably be like a real eye-opening type of, yep, time to be aware of this. All right, take a look at sector performance throughout the week. Utilities at the lower end, energies also at the lower end. Energies have not been well over the past week and a half. You can go take a look at those. Crude oil, gasoline, heating oil, they've all been breaking down, although they got some bounces also later this week. Materials also underperforming. Industrials, financials. Financials did actually do pretty good there on Friday as yields were rallying. Talk more about yields here in a second. Real estate also underperformed. Staples, discretionaries, communications underperforming. Healthcare underperforming just slightly, kind of in line with the market there. And tech actually outperformed there for the week. Kind of makes sense. Nvidia hit $3 trillion market cap earlier in the week. All right, let's very quickly kind of go through some of these VIX. Kind of surprised to see the VIX drop off as much as it did on Friday. Kind of talked about it on the live stream. I wouldn't, I would be more willing to take some bullish calls on the VIX on Friday at close and just sell them on Monday's open, because that works a lot. But for how much this thing dropped off, or how much we're about to see like dollar and yields really kind of jump there on Friday, I would be willing to take that bet over the weekend. Speaking of the dollar, look at that move. Woo! Very strong move. Kind of got, a little double bottom action here. Check this little double bottom action that we got this week. Very strong move higher. So we're going to have to see what happens here. That looks pretty strong. We were looking at the live stream today, dollar and yields. There's not too many times where we've gotten a strong move up like that and then we got moves lower, like in a downtrend. So this might be marking a bottom, and maybe we're on an upswing. One of the few times I see that we actually had a strong move was back over here on April 30th, and it was kind of like we were on a downtrend, kind of. I think we actually did take out the high right here from April 16th. It's pretty close, but it's not exactly at a low spot. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. All these previous kind of downtrends, we didn't really have huge lower moves. We definitely had continuations. At least in here, we had a little bit of an upswing, but we had a strong move up this day back on November 30th. But we had a continuation higher, and that's what I would expect to see this next week. Is dollar at least continue higher a little bit. I wouldn't expect some immediate reversal. That's a very strong move that we saw Friday on the DXY. And speaking of the inverse of that, gold, GLD, wow, broke down pretty strong, 3.5%. Kind of talked about it last week, even earlier this week. I wouldn't be surprised to see gold kind of pull back. I mean, we had a pretty sharp pullback kind of early, the kind of the second half of May here, the beginning of the second half of May 20th or so. And I just kind of felt like we were going to be due for a little bit more of a pullback here. And we tried to bounce then Wednesday, Thursday this week. Obviously, Friday just came right back down and smacked that. So I think we'll be due for a little bit more of a pullback. I wouldn't want to play bearish just because there's very strong momentum on a breakout that we got back in Q1. I would be just much more willing to be putting money in on pullbacks. All right, talking about yields. We talked about dollar, talked about yields. So yields had the breakdown continuation that they started. Well, they started kind of a downtrend the end of last week. They continued that very strongly to start the week and broke this uptrending line, obviously very clearly. And this move on Friday, we were kind of talking about a live stream this week. Like, you're going to be ready for any kind of move higher up into this, back up into this uptrending line, and you're going to kind of take that bearish. And I'll be pretty honest, I didn't think it would happen this quick and this strong. That's probably the two aspects of it that I think I would still like the idea of maybe being bearish on bonds here, or bearish on yields here, which would be bullish on bonds. But that I wouldn't be surprised we also continue higher, as this might have been a false breakdown, because there's not too many times where we see strong moves up on yields and yields continue to drop. I can't really think, maybe this day back over here on November 9th, but it took a couple days for us to then eventually break down later on. So not too many times do we see that. It's usually uptrends where we see very strong moves like we got on Friday. So that would be the one thing I would say about that. Like, you could try to be bullish on the bond side, expecting yields to drop. I get it. It was kind of what we talked about on the live stream earlier in the week, but I would be holding my breath on that one. 10 and 2 inversion, a little bit of a drop there throughout the week. Nothing crazy for how much yields move throughout the yield curve. You can see that we didn't really move too much there on Friday, so we still just might be in a choppy zone. HYG, high yield corporate bonds, kind of have a funky type of looking head and shoulders type action to it. You got a shoulder here. Oh, okay, I didn't grab it, but you got a shoulder here, neck, head, kind of a lower neck kind of action there, shoulder. Are we gonna break down again, possibly? Or you have lower highs coming in, and maybe we're gonna have lower lows, which then you're gonna set up, a new trend lower. Yeah, I mean, HYG not looking as good here recently, which is really kind of weird because it definitely was the stronger one. It has typically been the stronger out of the three bonds, the HYG, the LQD, and TLT over a good period of time. And speaking of the LQD, yeah, nice huge gap down there on the LQD. That is a brutal one. You kind of thought it, broke this downtrend. You're expecting, okay, if it comes down back down to this line, this trend line, you're going to take that on the bullishness. But man, for that gap down, it's kind of what we're talking about on the bonds, on the yield side. That, man, I don't know. Like, I'm down to give it a shot, but I mean, you just definitely know that you need to have those risk limits in place. And same thing kind of goes for the TLT, although we did not get all the way down to that trend line. Maybe the TLT kind of holds it and then pushes up, which obviously that'll help lift up the LQD, and obviously you probably get the yields to drop off as well. All right, let's take a look at the RSP real quick, and we got kind of a weird pennant pattern kind of going on here. And the interesting thing is earlier in the week on Tuesday, kind of talked about, the idea of this thing not looking good, right? We had a pretty good gap down there on Tuesday. It was looking like it was going to get pushed down and just break down. Wednesday kind of showed us some life. Nice little gap up. Nice little, the way it finished on Tuesday or Wednesday was looking pretty good. Wasn't looking as bad. I didn't expect it to be as strong there Wednesday. Thursday, not looking all that great, but then Friday I got this gap down upper wick. So we got a little bit of tightness here. Whichever way this thing breaks, I'll just go with it and just have your risk limits in place. The DIA, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Well, we had a huge breakdown here at the end of May, and we've gotten the bounce back. So was this a little bit too much of a deep bounce or deep drop, and then we've gotten a bounce, and now this is just the retest, and now we need to drop off here? It's very possible. We had a pretty good upper wick there on Friday with the way yields look and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not really wanting to kind of make that bet yet. I want to kind of see how the early parts of this next week kind of shape up. I want to see what yields do, especially Monday, Tuesday. And that's kind of the one way I would lean on several of these indices, except for IWM. IWM clearly has a breakdown here. We were forming this kind of downtrending line here. We had a little bit of a base action kind of like right in there. And then we just broke that on Friday. I was going to bring that up today, but we broke that already on Friday. So what I would be looking for is a continuation lower, probably right here into these highs that we had back from late April. So right there, probably a bounce up into like this zone around this 201, 202 type area, and then break down. I'd probably just take that bearish. That'd be what I'm looking for. Maybe not this exact route. It's kind of weird, but that's what I would look for. And then take a look at the Qs. Qs, nice little upper wick here. The thing I want to see out of the Qs and the SPY, one, we had a very nice push Wednesday. We had a very nice push to all-time highs on both the Qs and the SPY. Typically, when you get that, you want to see the next several days continue to push higher. Well, we didn't really do that. Like, we kind of pushed higher, but we didn't close higher. And that's kind of the problem. Like, people are selling as we've gotten up here. We're not going anywhere. So if we go sideways here and then just kind of flatten out and then drop off later, like it's not going to happen immediately. Okay, so I'm not saying to hit the panic mode. I even talked about changing the thumbnail to a sell this week on the live stream, but I'm not going to do that yet because we're going to have plenty of time. Like, it's not going to just drop off. You don't just do that from all-time highs. Like, you look back over here in March and April, like we had several weeks where we just kind of chopped sideways here, and then we kind of dropped off a little bit. So we're going to have time. You got plenty of time. No need to do anything crazy. Unless you just have a lot of gains in something that you're like, oh, I'm down to lock it up. And the same thing kind of goes there for the SPY. We'll have plenty of time. Let's just saying, if it's going to chop sideways, then maybe, we'll start to talk about reducing exposure. Maybe we can talk about going bearish. But as for now, I think you're just going to want to wait and see what the market does. If yields continue to push higher, markets aren't not pushing higher, but yields get back on the horse, I think that'll be a big problem coming soon. Alpha hunters, have a great weekend and take care.